All right, welcome back to part two of the Why Not Us, Why Not Now podcast, episode 20. We appreciate all of our viewers and listeners who are tuned in, listening to us, however you get your podcast. Thank you so much. Thank you to Ellie Davis for joining us as our special guest tonight. We broke down the AFC divisional round for you in part one. You can go back and listen at that, but now it's time to break down the NFC divisionals where even though it ended the way that it did on Sunday night, and I'm not trying to have recency bias when I say this, but I think it's very close that Chicago has found their most important professional sports figure since Michael Jordan donned the red and black for the Chicago Bulls. Because Caleb Williams almost pulled it off again. He had some turnovers that you would like for him to not have in a game like that, having those three interceptions. But that throw, y'all, that he made in the fourth quarter on fourth down, and the way he's going back and he's backpedaling, I'm like, no, this is going to end ugly. And you see that ball leave, and somehow Cole Kmet ends up getting open and he catches that touchdown. It's hard for me to put into words how amazing of a play that actually was to see. But the Rams pulled it off. Stafford didn't have his greatest game, but they didn't turn the ball over, and receivers did not drop passes in the game. And as a result, they're moving on to the NFC Championship game. We'll talk about who that opponent's going to be in just a moment. But Ellie, let's start off with you. Your overall thoughts on what we saw on Sunday night.
I mean, I'll tell you what, the Bears have been a lot of fun to watch this year. The NFC North was incredibly competitive. The NFC in and of itself was competitive. And I do think that it's always been off, man, to be a Bears fan or a bad news Bears. I think Caleb Williams is that guy. There was a lot of hype when he was drafted at USC, and his first year was really tough. And I feel like they've got this solid foundation. And we can't ignore the fadeaway touchdown to Cole Kmet. I think everybody's watched like this. And they all held their breath. And it was just one of the most exciting moments of the playoffs so far. I had a lot of fun. I mean, I definitely think that like it started off really exciting. I mean, tied 10-10 at the half, scoreless in the third. They kept it competitive. We're going to overtime. And it just kind of slowly fell apart from there. But it was so much fun to watch. Now, we did watch LA force Williams to throw his third interception of the game. So that was something we haven't really seen a lot. I think their defense was really, really tight. Tying it up, was pretty. As you head into the end of it, you're like, okay, what's going to happen? There was an interception and then kind of a big game changer. LA just kind of marched down the field, kicked a 42-yard field goal. Boom, bang, we're out the door. We're heading to the championship. But it was good. It was a better game than I expected it to be. It was a lot of fun to watch. And I think Ben Johnson was extremely aggressive on fourth down, which I think makes for a better game. And it makes him a good coach. Can't just kick field goals all day.
I agree with that sentiment 100%. Also, one more point I want to make about the game. There were a lot more points scored in this game than I initially thought that there would be. It was frigid. It was cold out there. And usually, it's usually a defense and run game. And the perimeter honestly ended up being a big play and big factor in this game with the receivers getting active out there, KB. And look, I got to give the Bears defense a shout out because I came on here last week and I grilled them for how they played against the Packers because that secondary, I mean, they were awful against Green Bay. They weren't necessarily terrific against the Rams, but they did play better in that game, and they didn't necessarily end up being the reason that the Bears ultimately would lose the game. You just got to give Stafford and McVay credit for the things that they were able to do and how they were able to draw some things up there. But KB, your thoughts overall on what we saw on Sunday Night Football and especially the growth of Caleb Williams throughout year two?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna look at it more so that it's hard to take a lot of things away from a loss, but I think you could do this with the Chicago Bears. Like I think that now we've seen what Ben Johnson can do with Caleb Williams. I think that speaks to a lot of the development that he had this season because we saw last year we didn't know what we had with Caleb Williams. We saw a lot of inconsistencies. We saw like he would have a great game. He would make some good throws, but then for every good throw, we saw a bunch of questionable decisions. Ben Johnson, I do believe, is a hell of a coach. I think that I've seen enough from him in 1 year to see exactly what Chicago saw in him to get him in the door. I think that team is only going to get better the more situations that they can find themselves in, because we always see a year makes a world of a difference. And, all this does is just build up for, the comeback. I think that Caleb Williams is going to keep improving, because it's just been a couple of throws this year that I could see exactly why he went number one. I see it. I see the potential. You could even say that he's going to be an MVP one day. That's just the type of talent he has. He can escape the pocket. He can make every throw on the field. He's that type of guy. Now, all you have to do, if I'm Chicago, you have to just continue to keep putting pieces around him. Like I said, you have to rebuild that defense, but that defense I want to give them credit, because, like you said, I was not the biggest fan of that defense throughout the regular season. I've spoken critical of them before, and they actually did enough to win that game. Now, speaking of that throw, because we talking about Jordan-esque, like one of the craziest throws I've ever seen in my life. Off the back foot, you already retreated back 10, maybe 10 plus yards, and you make a throw like that on the money. Yeah, I think I see exactly what I need to see from him. Not just that throw, but just the ability to make the throw. I think we see a lot of guys that it wouldn't even have reached the end zone with him dropping back that far and throwing it off the back foot, because it was like a heave, but it was an accurate heave. That was the thing that I saw was Caleb Williams. That was just like everything I've always been critical of him, was that sometimes he maybe held on to the ball too long, that maybe he needed to, he tried to extend plays too much. But in a situation like that, you are looking at the fact that he is able to extend plays because he gave you a chance, which is something that you can only ask for. But the question I will throw back to you all is, do you think they regret not going for two? The only reason I ask is because, and now hindsight is always 2020. We can always look back now and say, do they regret it? But I'm only asking because who's to say they wouldn't have gotten that, and that possibly would have sealed the game for them. I'm just curious, just because of how the game was going. I know it was a gritty back and forth game. It was low scoring affair. Defenses played great. Neither quarterback really had it going. So I just look at it like, do you think that there's any second guessing coming from the organization that they should have went for two to win it?
In that situation, I'm honestly not sure. But as the old saying goes, no risk it, no biscuit. I honestly thought they would go for two. I thought that once Cole Kmet got the touchdown, I thought we were going to see Ben Johnson throw up the peace sign. That's exactly what I thought we were going to see, but we didn't. They played for overtime, and they had a shot in overtime too, but the interception happened, and Rams go down the field, and they end up kicking the field goal to win the game.
I think if you play to win. I mean, you got to be aggressive, and that's something that we saw the entire game. Their defense stepped up. I mean, kind of like you guys said, they let Aaron Rodgers, they let Jordan Love throw 4 touchdowns on Wild Card Weekend. So who's to say that your defense is going to go out there and fare any better in overtime? Put your offense up to the plate, play to win. You lose, you lose. I mean, obviously you don't want to lose, but who's to say you're going to do any better in overtime? You're right there. Be as aggressive as physically possible. How much faith do you have in your offense? I'd have more faith in my offense than my defense if I was Chicago. I would have gone for it.
They also could have just handed the ball to DeAndre Swift, too, who the Rams had some trouble stopping throughout that entire game, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Not only presented that option to you all, just because I think if I was more so, yes, they played great, but if I was thinking about it, like, okay, if I had Houston's defense or Cleveland's defense, maybe I could understand going into overtime, because I know that defense is capable of stopping literally anyone. But then I thought about it. You just made a throw that you weren't even supposed to make, that a lot of people can't make. So you made a throw to possibly win, like, to give you a chance to win. With the momentum that you had after that throw, that was the way I was thinking about it. If you're going to go for it all, because at this point, you're playing you're playing to win. You're playing for an NFC Championship berth, which is something that Chicago hasn't seen in a while. I don't think that they would have been as critical of Ben Johnson because if I have any confidence that someone can draw a play up to get a 2-point conversion, I would put my money on Ben Johnson. So I think that it wasn't as risky as people think it would have been. Like certain quarterbacks in certain situations, I think that Caleb Williams' ability to extend plays, move the pocket, would have given you a myriad of options to play with. You had so many things you could play with. And then, like I said, DeAndre Swift is also another option that you could have utilized in that game because of their inability to stop him. So I just look at it like, yeah, I'm more so hindsight looking at it, but I just, I always look at that thing as like, should they have gone for it? Do you think they second guessed themselves? Um, I think that they wanted to show. I think Ben Johnson also wanted to show that he had confidence in his defense because he gave them the leeway because of the way they played in the entire game. Like you limit one of the most explosive offenses to the to that low scoring affair. Like you can't ask for more. Yes, the weather was bad. It was freezing temperatures, everything, but that was honestly one of the best football games I've seen too. Like, because if you love defense and you love chess match between coaches, that's exactly what you ask for. You're asking for a game to go down to the wire. We got great performances overall, so I'm not mad either way. I think that you can take something and build off of this though. If you're Chicago, if you're LA, you keep pushing forward, but you will not be afforded those same mistakes in this NFC Championship game. You will not. So you got a lot to clean up. You can't take anything morally from that game. You have to be able to make adjustments. And I think Sean McVay is the coach to make those adjustments. But you got a lot to clean up and you don't have much time to do it.
Yeah, to the points in the game, I just want to make this clear to the audience. There was a combined 37 points. And I know some folks will look at that and say, well, that's not really a lot of points. Look, going into this game, I thought it was a 13-10 type of game. That's exactly what I thought it was going to be with the frigid cold temperatures. It actually warmed up slightly a little, for lack of a better term, because there was nothing warm about Chicago out there on Sunday night. But it wasn't as cold out there as it was originally anticipated to be temperature-wise. They got about an 8-degree difference going higher up than we were originally told they would get. The last point I want to make to close out this segment, Ellie, I'm sorry. I know you're a Packers fan and you're not going to want to hear this. Chicago, you guys keep your head up because the future is bright. Well, speaking of their opponent that they will play in the NFC Championship game, the Seattle Seahawks, they absolutely rolled over the San Francisco 49ers on Saturday night. Rashid Shaheed took the ball 95 yards down the field on a kickoff return just to kick things off. And that pretty much was the end of that ball game, as she wrote it, if you ask me, because that was a total momentum swing that got the crowd into it from the very beginning, kept them into the game. The toughest I saw the San Francisco 49ers play on Saturday, KB, wasn't even during the game. It was in the pregame when, they come out there, they dancing out of the locker room. They got the dude carrying the boom box. I'm just like, yeah, this is as much fight as I saw them show the entire game. And that's no disrespect to them, but that's exactly what happened. Seattle came out there and they punched them in the mouth and they didn't look back.
Yeah, and like I said, you could kind of see how the game was trending early in the first quarter. It was getting away from them early on. Like the kickoff started it off, but they just literally had no fight. And I remember I seen Juwan Jennings saying like, "Oh, that's exactly who I wanted. We wanted Seattle." Be careful what you ask for, because it's not just that easy, because literally they have a top 10 offense and top 10 defense. They can beat you any way that you can think of right now. So even like we have so many questions about Sam Darnold, and rightfully so, because we know the history, we know the past, and what he's done in the playoffs. We know about all that. They found a different way to win. They got contributions from special teams, defense, the run game. They literally can beat you in different ways, and that's what makes this team so scary. That is why I put them as my favorite for the Super Bowl, because of the way that they can beat you several ways. They have probably, in my opinion, the best home field advantage that you're going to get in the NFL. That 12th man is real. Like, that place is rocking from the start of the game, pregame, to the end of the game. So you're asking a team to come in there, silence the noise, silence that pass rush, which is a monster. Like, it's so many things that you have to do to beat Seattle. I don't know if a team, especially a team like LA, who just came off a very grueling game in themselves and very, freezing temperature. I don't know if they have enough to do it. Now, like I said, Sam Darnold's going to have to play out his mind because this is going to be a way better defense than he's seen with San Francisco. It's definitely going to be a more explosive offense than he saw with San Francisco. Yeah, see, I look at this more of Seattle making a statement than San Francisco getting thumped because we saw the limitations. We saw a few, the injuries that they had on the defensive side of the ball for San Francisco. It was a lot that they were up against, But the real question I have for y'all is, like, when we talked about Sean McDermott, when are we going to start talking about Kyle Shanahan? Because we're seeing this thing where either he loses when he gets to the big game or he loses before he gets to the big game. But we're seeing, like, they're there every year, but they're peaking at the wrong time. The times that they're like, I knew this year was going to be a very uphill battle for them just because, like I said, we talked about the injuries on the offensive side of the ball. Their wide receiver room is not elite enough for me to even, there's nothing really enough for me to talk about. Like, they have no real playmakers outside of George Kittle, like in Christian McCaffrey on the offensive side of the ball. I think that is a problem going forward, and it's going to be something they got to address if they're talking about being a serious contender for more years to come. And then you also have to look at it, is Brock Purdy our future? Because I'm not so sure about it. I'm not so sure about Brock Purdy as my starting quarterback now, today, that I was a couple of seasons ago when he seemed to be a dark horse MVP candidate. I'm not sure about him right now. And honestly, like I said, if this continues, I'm not so sure about Kyle Shanahan anymore. I know he's one of the greatest offensive minds that the game has seen, but I can't say I'm not concerned.
The fact that you're even being as respectful as you are right now in your tone when it comes to Kyle Shanahan, I find surprising because that man was the offensive coordinator of 28-3. He literally was the offensive author of your team not being able to complete the mission in a Super Bowl where they had a 25-point lead. So I want to give you your kudos on just being respectful the way that you are about this entire thing right now. One note I want to make about Seattle heading into this NFC Championship game before we hand it off to Ellie to get her thoughts on what Seattle did on Saturday night. They will have to go without Zach Charbonnet. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL on Saturday. So it is literally going to be Kenneth Walker on that ground game and not too much more beyond that. And to me, that's an advantage for the Rams because you don't have to deal with that two-headed monster out of the backfield. But Ellie, your thoughts overall on what we saw from Seattle on Saturday?
Yeah, I think Seattle came in and they came in hot. And you're seeing kind of the 2010s 12th man. I mean, it's the Richard Sherman, the Marshawn Lynch, the Russell Wilson era where playing in Seattle was horrifying. I mean, if you're an NFC fan, you didn't want to go on the road to Seattle in the playoffs. And this is also the first time that they're playing at home in the playoffs in over a decade. So the fire is there. Where the fire wasn't was San Francisco. I don't know what happened. I mean, we saw Brock Purdy throw 5 touchdowns against the Bears, 5 against the Colts. They looked really good. I think he lacked protection. I think we saw some notable injuries, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey lacked participation in the second half. But I don't know that I'm on the fire Kyle Shanahan train just yet. I saw something on Twitter that kind of talked about, he's done a great job with making lemonade out of a reduced inventory of lemons, but there just wasn't enough left to squeeze. I think the resources are there. The resources seem to be always hurt, but I don't know that we fire him just yet. But I do think Brock Purdy is that guy. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say he is that guy. What I don't understand is how they can't make the moves when it matters. I don't know if that's just an inability to kind of finish strong, but it's tough because I feel like the end of the season, you're running out of gas. Everybody is. But at the same time, that's when you're expected to step up to the plate and to make the big moves. But San Francisco seems to be able to get just about all the way there, and then they fall off a cliff. That was not the score that I was expecting. I expected it to be a really good game. But I think, Xavier, like you said, I mean, the opening kickoff return for a touchdown. Good night. The end. The place erupted. That's it. Pack your bags. We're good. That's it.
Sometimes there are just plays that happen during a game, whether it's the start of the game, the start of a half, or at any given point in a game that is a total momentum shifter, and you just know right then and there in that moment, okay, this probably is not going to be too much to look forward to. And seeing Shaheed going down the sideline the way that he was, the kicker tried to trip him up to prevent him from doing it, and he completely missed him. San Francisco got a penalty for that, and it didn't even matter because he took the ball 95 yards down the field and scored that touchdown. It just feels different there right now. And I want to close out simply by saying this. Shout out to DeMarcus Lawrence, because he's gone to Seattle and he has revived his career. When he left there last year, when he left Dallas to go to Seattle, a lot of folks, myself included, felt like that was a gamble for Seattle because we weren't seeing the dominant DeMarcus Lawrence that we had seen throughout most of his time in the Dallas Cowboys with his prime. But when he was asked about why he would leave the Dallas Cowboys, he said, "This is always going to be my home. I just don't feel like I can win a Super Bowl here." In his first season with the Seattle Seahawks, they are going to the NFC Championship, a place the Dallas Cowboys have not been for 30 years. But one thing I do want to say about the San Francisco 49ers, Ellie, you're right. I'm not on the fire Kyle Shanahan train, but he has to get it done. You get to these big games, you have to find a way to get it done. And I don't know what that coaching staff is going to look like next year, especially in terms of that defense, because Robert Saleh is not coming back through the door because he is the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans. That hiring was officially made official on Tuesday evening. I'm curious to see who he brings in as his offensive coordinator. I'm rooting for him to do well at this spot because I don't believe that Tennessee is the equivalence of a mess and a catastrophe that the New York Jets are. But I know for a fact he's going to have to get that offensive coordinator position right as they continue to develop Cam Ward. But he definitely should have been someone who was hired in this cycle because he proved with the New York Jets that he should have been a head coach by the simple fact that when the Jets fired him, he was their best coach in the building. They fired him and everything completely went off a cliff at that point.
Yeah, I think that, you know, he could have went into a lot worse situations. You already have your quarterback of the future. I think that that's important. Like I said, if you can get that right, because we've seen Cam Ward, I've seen enough from him to see like he is exactly who, the organization believes he is. He can make some elite level throws. And if you, as a new head coach, if you can get your quarterback position right, if you have an established, like you have an idea of what your quarterback room is going to look like, you can kind of go from there. Now it's more about putting his stamp and putting his identity onto the Tennessee Titans because we've seen they don't have one. They don't have an identity. They're not labeled as a tough, gritty team. He can make them into a gritty team. We've seen what he's done with San Francisco for many years as the DC. So I think that was a great hire. I think that he deserves it because I don't feel like that. I think that he just inherited a dumpster fire in New York and he was a casualty of that. Because I saw certain instances, I was like, this guy looks like a coach. He looks like a head coach. He gives me he passes a lot of the eye test for me. And now it's about who's he going to fill out his staff with, who's going to bring along as an offensive coordinator, who he's going to bring as the defensive coordinator. What other things are going to, because you're only going to be as good as those that you bring around you. And, you have a team that they can only go up from here. It's really going to only get better if you want me to be completely honest. I think that we've seen them at their lowest lows. Cam Ward is only going to get better because I know he's a phenomenal worker. He's going to work to clean up some of those mistakes. Because maybe if he limits those mistakes, we're looking at Cam Ward as, they completely like hit the mark on that pick.
They got to get him some weapons, though.
They got to get him
That's
some
the
weapons.
number one thing they got to do. They got to get him some weapons.
You have to, because like the guys that he had in that wide receiver room, no offense to them, but they're not playmakers. Not in the sense of what he needs. He does need a guy that you can just say, go get it for me. Like, I can put it up there. You just got to go get it. I don't think he has that right now, but I hope that they continue to build around him, because I don't want to see his career be hindered by the lack of weapons that the organization has, not put around him. And I hope that Robert Saleh, I wish him all the best, because, like I said, he's gone to some really tough situations for his first 2 coaching jobs. I do think he can be more optimistic about this one than the New York Jets job. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Ellie, your quick thoughts on Saleh to the Titans, because this is not one that we saw coming.
I think it's a great decision. I mean, I personally think you can't hold him responsible for what happened in New York. I mean, he inherited a dumpster fire there. So I'd like to see somebody with such a defensive mindset go in somewhere like Tennessee that's given up 345 yards a game, somewhere around that. I mean, that's terrible. So if you can get somebody to go in there in a high level position, kind of control the narrative, work on the defense while also establishing a new team, I think he's going to need some help. But I also think that we could see Cam Ward be like Bryce Young. When we first saw him in Carolina, it was not a strong start. And it was several years of, oh dear God, is this ever going to get better? And I think that having him there now, I think we're going to see it be a real game changer for Tennessee. And I think that could prove to be competitive rather than just continuing to fall at the bottom of the division, be a team that you forget even exists. So I think I got a fighting shot.
Well, we know he's got his quarterback going in. Somebody who doesn't is Jeff Hafley. He is the new head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And I describe this hiring as uninspiring, not towards Jeff Hafley per se, but because of the situation that the Miami Dolphins are in. We don't know if Tua's coming back in 2026. We don't know what's going to happen with Tyreek Hill. There's a lot of money invested in this team, and they need to let some of it go. I'm rooting for Jeff Hafley to do well, but it would not surprise me if this is a one and done type of situation because of what it is that he's inheriting going in there. Chris Grier made a mess out of this roster, and if this general manager can find a way to move heaven on this one, we'll see what ends up happening. But he is the new head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Jeff Hafley, the former defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers. Ellie, you being a Packers fan, your thoughts on Miami making this move?
I think it's interesting, but I don't think it's the last Packer that we're going to see go there. I mean, we saw John Eric Sullivan's their VP of personnel in Green Bay. He headed over there. I think he handpicked Hafley to come down there. I think if you get rid of Tua, this would be a really good opportunity to pick up Malik Willis and maybe take a little bit more of the Green Bay Packers coaching staff in the meantime. I don't think things are going to get better before they get worse. I think you're going to have a rebuilding year. I think it's going to take some time. I don't think it's a one and done, but I do think things are going to get better before they get worse. And it's really tough to compete in a division behind New England and Buffalo. So you've already got your work cut out for you, but I see success. It's going to take some time. I mean, he also developed players like Zay Flowers at Boston College. So we saw it at the collegiate level. We saw the Packers not be a dumpster fire during his time there. So I think we give it a little bit of time, a little bit of grace, but not everybody gets that. You know, if you go in and you have a terrible season, it could be a one and done type situation. I hope he gets the time to develop the team, but they got to cut Tua. You got to do something about that. You cannot just keep running with a quarterback that can't compete to the full potential of everybody else in the AFC East. You are going to continue to just get steamrolled.
KB, your quick thoughts on this one.
Ellie she hit the nail on the head. Like, I really think that my only hope is that they give him the opportunity to like see this vision through, let him build something there instead of just like, because they're not going to win. They're not set up to compete right now. They have talent on the roster. You have possibly a top 5 running back. You have weapons at the wide receiver position. Well, you have a weapon right now with Tyreek's injury right now, but I think that moving off of Tua is the first step in the whole, like, it's the first domino that has to fall. I've seen like these last 2 or 3 seasons have not been good from Tua. I don't think he's had a really great season since, I believe, 2021. Either it was 2021 or 2022, but he struggled mightily. And, this past season, it was just constant things that were just alarming that he did, not only on the field but off the field in press conferences. Like, we've talked about these earlier in the season. Like, something is just off with him, and I don't think that this is going to be someone that you can kind of hone in and just make it to like where it doesn't exist anymore. I think that this is Tua. This is him to his T. Like, to a T, he is who he is. He's not a very athletic quarterback. He doesn't have a strong arm. He is who he is. And if you're talking about competing in the AFC East, you have to have more, you have to get more from your quarterback play. Like, it has to be something where you can't go in and week out and say that we are consistently being handicapped by our quarterback and his lack of, abilities to do certain things on the field. So I do hope that Hafley actually gets the opportunity to build something, see his vision come true, and actually establish his own identity with the team. But if, we've seen it with Pete Carroll in Las Vegas, some coaches aren't afforded that opportunity to get multiple seasons. Sometimes you see what you see, and if you feel like that it's time to move on, we've seen it multiple times in the league over the past couple of years. So I hope that he's not one of those, because I do feel like that some of these situations are not all created the same. Like, you could inherit garbage, and now you have to make a masterpiece with it. So I hope he gets his opportunity.
Yeah, I hate that for Pete Carroll too, that his last stint as an NFL head coach is probably going to be what ended up happening in Vegas. He deserves so much better than that. So great point on that one there. The New York Giants got their man, John Harbaugh, agreeing to a 5-year deal around the ballpark range of $100 million. The money involved here per season is absolutely incredible. But he is going in to take over the Giants, and all I have to say about this is, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, I don't know how much of a hot take this is. The Giants are my early favorite to win the NFC East division next year. I think he's going to come in there and he's going to get things cleaned up immediately, because there's not too much that's wrong over there. You need to get a right tackle. I like Jackson Dart. You got Neighbors coming back at some point. Cam Scatterboo's going to come back. Hire the right defensive coordinator for that group that you have, because you got some guys who can really go hunt after the quarterback, with Brian Burns leading the pack right there. Ellie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think hope and faith might have been restored with the Giants. I think change can be good. I think this is a really good opportunity to build up young talent, but you have to put in the effort. And if anybody's qualified to do it, it's Harbaugh. I mean, he proves consistency and he breeds greatness. So I think it's a really good hire. Not the team I expected him to land with, because I didn't expect him to take a team that I think would need a little bit of rebuilding, but I think it'll prove to be good. And I don't know if I have them favored to win the division, but I would like to see them go over 500. We'll say that.
KB, your thoughts on John Harbaugh landing in the Big Apple?
Good hire. I'll say that I think some of the factors that came into his decision making process was the quarterback position. I know it came down to Giants in Atlanta, and I think the lack of knowing what the quarterback situation is going to look like in Atlanta played a part in it. I'm not going to say that played a full part in it, but it definitely may have factored into his decision making. And he does have some weapons on that offensive side of the ball. A couple of need to get back from injury for you to really see exactly what it'll look like long term. Because, like I said, with Cam Scatterbo, you're looking at Jackson Dart going into year two. You're looking at Malik Neighbors trying to cement himself as a top 5 to maybe 7 wide receiver in the league, because he has that type of talent. You have weapons on that offense, but then, like you just brought up, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, you have weapons on that defense as well. I think that if anybody can turn it around, it can be him. And like I said, bringing that championship pedigree, like that's undefeated as well. Like you don't get too many coaches that have been in big games, especially for a team that has a lot of young stars. Like this is going to help them out in the long run, anyways. Just being able to, listen to the type of coach that he's going to become with the New York Giants, like he can help mold them into some like savvy vets in a couple of years. I think that he will be given that opportunity to let that team grow into whatever vision he has for them. I think that ownership is going to back him, knowing the track record that he has had in Baltimore. He's going to be afforded more opportunity to fall and pick himself back up than a lot of like coaches that are just getting their start. So, I think it was a great hire for the Giants.
And the last one that we got to get to, and that is Kevin Stefanski coming to Atlanta. I think he all the way down here in Bradenton, I could hear the outrage that was probably going on Panola Road when this hiring was made on Saturday evening. But I believe that this was the right move for the Falcons. This is one of the highly touted candidates. He's an offensive mind. I want to say that he's going to be good for the development of Michael Penix, but I don't know if Michael Penix is a long-term plan. But I trust that Matt Ryan will end up working with him and whoever it is they hire as the general manager. Surprisingly, that hasn't happened yet. I believe that announcement will be coming soon. The good news is he is keeping Jeff Ulbrich in as his defensive coordinator. I know that that was the one thing that they wanted to make sure happened as a part of the package deal. And we learned earlier this evening that Tommy Reese is coming in to be the team's offensive coordinator. I don't think these are bad moves that the Falcons are making. I just think the fans need to calm down, be patient, and let things play out. Do not base what happened the past 2 seasons on that being the version of Kevin Stefanski that you're going to get. He was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. We talk about the Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets in the same breath, folks. Horrible, dysfunctional organizations. Now that he's somewhere where I believe there's going to be better stability, no doubt about the fact he's got a better roster all around that he's working with here. I think that it's actually going to end up working out. Ellie, you're a big Kevin Stefanski fan too. Your thoughts on Atlanta making this move?
Yeah, I am. I really like the guy. I mean, if the Packers weren't to extend Matt LaFleur, I would have taken Stefanski in a heartbeat. I think it is tough because you associate him with the Cleveland Browns and you associate the Cleveland Browns with not seeing the playoffs in a while and not being historically very good. But not all of that could be Stefanski's fault. I mean, he was the coach of the year in 2020 and 2023. They had 2 playoff appearances. I don't think it's a him problem. It could just be an organization problem. I know Baker Mayfield's happy about it because they thinks they're going to beat them. So hopefully beefs up the NFC South. But I think it's a good hire. I think that, like you said, he's got an offensive mindset. I don't know how long they're going to keep Michael Penix Jr., but if Stefanski wants to put in the work, I think it's worth it. It was not a hire that I was necessarily surprised by. I wanted him to come to Green Bay personally, but that didn't go my way whatsoever, and that's okay. But I think it's a win. I think it's a good decision. I think the fans are just nervous because, like you said, we say the Jets, the Giants, and the Browns all in the same breath, and they go, "Oh dear God, the Browns." But can't blame everything on one man.
All right, KB. I don't know if you can put the robe on and give us a Pentecostal sermon for this one because I know you weren't necessarily the biggest fan of this, but your thoughts on your Falcons making this move?
Nah, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not necessarily against it. I didn't necessarily know if I was for it. I knew that they needed a coach. The reason why I say they needed a coach with some type of like grit, and I do think Kevin Stefanski is a good coach. Let me just go ahead and say that and like get that off the rip. I think he's a good coach. My problem is right now, do you think that I think I'm still kind of salty after, the last hiring cycle of coaches that we missed on a lot of potential coach of the years with, Ben Johnson being in Chicago. I think that I'm still kind of having a little PTSD from that moment. And so the Stefanski hire is one of those ones I'm optimistic about it. Like, I want to see what's going to happen. I really do, because he can get this offense, some juice. Tommy Reese, I think, can get this offense some juice, because what we already will know is we will be more improved on the offensive side of the ball than we were under Zach Robinson and Raheem Morris. For example, Tommy Reese has actually called plays before. That was something that Zach Robinson never did prior to the Falcons. So we already see major differences in the situation. So, and I think that a lot of the so-called Falcon fans need to be aware that this ain't a movie. We can't be out here just saying, oh, we want Deion Sanders for what? Like, what reason would we have right now to hire Deion Sanders? Like, be realistic about what you're asking for. You're not, that's not logic. That's not logic. Oh, we want Shador. That's not logical right now. Like, would I be better off with Shador? I think I would be better off with Mac Jones right now than Shador. For the experience level, and I just need a bridge quarterback. I don't even think Michael Penix right now is the answer. I think that if anybody can help him, it could be Stefanski, but I don't even think Michael Penix right now is the answer. I think that what it is, we got to stop all the barbershop talk, because, people always talk about Atlanta, being a predominantly black area, and they saying that we need, it's about the culture. What is our culture? Losing? We haven't won anything to have a culture. What culture have you actually established to have so many demands about what's going on organizationally wise? Like, we don't have anything that we built. Like, I've seen more people come to the games to party than actually care about the actual game. That's a problem. Like, and just growing up out here, like, it's almost like folks don't care about winning. They just care about what it looks like, or how they care about the image, not actually what goes on the field. I care about winning. Like, can you help us win? Yes or no? That's all that matters to me. I could care less who it is, and if Stefanski is that guy, we'll see it. If he's not, I'm sure the results will come out sooner rather than later. But I care about results. I don't care about what it looks like. So that's where
I want to piggyback off of something you just said really quickly, because you said these so-called fans who are clamoring for hiring Deion Sanders to come in and be the coach over a guy like Kevin Stefanski. You brought up how there is no culture of winning here. Do these so-called fans realize that Deion Sanders left the Falcons in 1993 because they could not win? He wanted to win. That is why he left and went to the San Francisco 49ers. That is why he left the Atlanta Falcons, because they could not win. And yes, we have had some great times in terms of just the culture and what it means urbanly to the city. Nobody will ever understand, if you were not there in real time, the way Mike Vick lit up ATL in the 2000s. If you were not there, you cannot understand. KB, we were there. We saw, like, Vick had the city rocking. It was very rare that you saw another team's jersey on opposing fans in the Georgia Dome during the Michael Vick era in Atlanta. People were coming in there wearing the sevens, whether they were red, black, or white. And you're right, that's what they want to go back to. But what I also remember about that era, it wasn't a lot of winning that happened. There was a playoff season that happened in 2002. There was an NFC Championship run that happened in 2004, and it wasn't too much winning besides that. So what do y'all want? Do you want swagger and excitement, or do you want to win? Good point.
And the reason why I say that, and that's a great point, is because these are the same, when they're saying who was the best quarterback in Falcons history, this is the same type of conversation I constantly have to have. If you're talking about who accomplished more, it was Matt Ryan. It was not Michael Vick. Whether you want to say, oh, Vick would have done this, we don't get to go back and rewrite history. The greatest quarterback in the Falcons history is Matt Ryan, and that's just what it is. So when I say the barbershop talk has to stop, because it's just like, I get culture, I get all of that, but do you want to win? because my thing is these other organizations are figuring out ways to win. We have to stop worrying about what it looks like and worry about how we can get it done. I don't care about the semantics. I don't care about the whole image of what the Falcons are. We want the best coach. We want the best players. That's what it is. And if we can get that done, I want that. If Stefanski is the answer, then until he does something that, shows us otherwise, back him up. Because I remember, and I do remember this, a lot of people were backing the Raheem Morris hire, even though he had done nothing to warrant the type of hype that he was getting. Other than him being a player's coach, there was nothing else that behind him that made people that he should have gotten the support that he got. He had a losing record. He was an interim coach here before. He did nothing in the league of significance to warrant the support that he got, but he got it anyway. Give Kevin Stefanski a chance to show if he can actually come in and change things. And if he can't, then that's a whole nother conversation. But if he can, give him the opportunity to show that he can do it. Give Tommy Rees the exact same opportunity to show that, because wherever this is, I guarantee you it'll be better than what we just saw for the past couple of seasons. I'm already optimistic that it's going to be better than what we just saw. So I'm fine with it. I can sleep well at night knowing that they probably got, if not the best coach, the second best coach that was available. So I'm fine with it.
Absolutely. We're going to close this out by going to a second set of quick hitters. We don't usually do this, but you got to get to these headlines. Going to the NBA really quickly. Unfortunate news that happened on Monday evening when the Warriors were taking on the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler tearing his ACL. That is awful. You never want to see that happen with anybody. Wishing Jimmy a speedy recovery. I do have to say this, though. This version of the Warriors as we knew them, it's officially over in terms of being in a championship contention window. Unless somehow they get on the phone and they get Giannis Antetokounmpo in the same jersey with Steph Curry, I don't see anything happening there for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's over. I mean, shout out to the dynasty that they had going in the mid 2010s, but I think it's over. I think that we've seen the end of Steph Curry in NBA Finals. So good run.
Congratulations to Kevin Durant, an ex-teammate of Steph Curry. He is now sixth on the all-time scoring list in NBA history, surpassing Shaquille O'Neal. I believe it was that he surpassed, right, Katie? Yeah, passing Shaq on that all-time scoring list just recently here. Man, if it had not been for the injuries, especially the Achilles that happened in 2019, you just wonder how much further up KD really would be up on that list right now.
Yeah, man, one of the most efficient scorers that we've ever seen. They don't call him easy money sniper for no reason. Like, this guy can get a bucket in any way possible on a basketball court. One of the greatest hoopers we've ever seen. So congratulations to him.
And we're going to close these quick hitters out by just giving you our predictions for the AFC NFC Championship games. Ellie, you are our guest. We're going to have you go first on this one.
You want scores or who I think is going to win?
Both.
All right. I'd like to put in for AFC. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm taking Denver, and I'm going to take 2017. Yep. I know. That's out there. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. NFC, I'm taking Seattle. And I'd like to go 27-24.
I like it. KB, where are you on this?
I'm going to go with the same exact prediction for the NFC Championship game with the same exact score. I do think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think it is going to come down to a field goal. When it goes to the AFC, Ellie, I gotta go to the opposite. I gotta go New England. I think that quarterback position is so important that I don't think that Jared Stidham is gonna have enough. I think that this is gonna be an offensive struggle for them. I think they're gonna keep it close for a second, and then New England is gonna make plays on both the defensive side of the ball and offensive side to kind of break it open. So I'm gonna go with a final score of 24-10.
I'm going to go with Denver in the AFC Championship. I believe in Sean Payton. And I believe in the game plan that I believe that he's going to draw up for Jarrett Stidham to go out and have success against New England. And also just the fact that Drake May is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league for years to come. I haven't seen it in this playoff run, and Denver has a defense that can cause some problems. And they know that they have to step up and play arguably their best game of the season so far, with Bo Nix not being able to be out there to help carry the offense. Give me Denver to win this one by a final score of 24-17. In the NFC, I think that we're going to see a very competitive NFC Championship game. I do not expect Seattle to go out there and roll over the Rams like they did San Francisco. I'm going to go with a final score of 34-30 in favor of the 12s up in Seattle. We are getting a rematch of Super Bowl 48. In terms of who's going to win that one, if we get to that point, we'll give you our predictions then. But thank you to everybody for tuning in to this edition of the Why Not Us, Why Not Now podcast. Thank you so much to Ellie for joining us this evening. I can guarantee you that this is not the final time that you will see her as a guest on this show. Ellie, thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. This was tons of fun.
For X and KB and Ellie, we're saying peace. Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.